U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that Washington is ready to respond if Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis move to impose a blockade in the Red Sea. The threat comes after the group declared a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia, potentially opening a new front in the U.S.-Iran conflict and raising fresh concerns about global energy supplies. South Korea's Foreign Minister Hyun is set to attend ASEAN-related meetings in the Philippines, where top diplomats from Southeast Asia and other major powers have gathered for a series of security talks. Cho is expected to meet his American and Japanese counterparts to discuss North Korea and economic security issues. The heads of Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics, SK Group, and Naver are expected to meet Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang in the United States as early as Friday. The talks follow Huang's visit to Seoul in early June and are expected to highlight Nvidia's deepening partnership with Korean companies. We begin this morning with President Lee Jae-myung's remarks at a cabinet meeting which signaled that tax measures could be part of his administration's latest effort to rein in on South Korea's overheated housing market. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
With the government expected to unveil a new package of housing measures later this month, President Lee Jae-myung offered fresh clues about what could be included.
속도감 있는 공급 대책과 더불어서 현실에 부합하는 실수요자 지원 대책을 촘촘하게 마련하겠습니다. 조세 제도 역시 국민의 상식과 눈높이에 기초해서 공정하고 합리적으로 정비될 수 있게 하겠습니다.
Korea has been grappling with an overheated housing market driven by property speculation that has pushed prices in the capital region to record highs. What stood out on Tuesday was the president mentioning a tax system reform as a key solution. While the administration has so far focused on regulating multiple homeowners, the upcoming measures are expected to directly impact single homeowners. One option under consideration is raising taxes on what the government would classify as ultra-high value homes. Currently, single homeowners can receive the same maximum property tax deduction regardless of how much their property is worth. The proposal is expected to be discussed at a policy forum chaired by President Lee on Thursday before the government finalizes the measures. Also at Tuesday's cabinet meeting, Lee called for additional safeguards for single-stock leveraged exchange-traded funds tied to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, which offer 2 times the stock's average daily return.
정책 당국 입장에서야 완벽하게 하는 게 어렵긴 했지만 어쨌든 신속하게 또 필요한 대응 조치는 좀 과감하게 하도록 하십시오.
Last week, financial authorities announced stronger investment rules for the products following steep losses since their launch in late May. The new rules triple the minimum deposit requirement to 30 million won, or roughly $20,000, all in cash. Whether it's housing or financial markets, President Lee is signaling that his administration is prepared to strengthen protection where it believes excessive speculation is putting ordinary people at risk. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, over in the Middle East, U.S. President Donald Trump vowed action in response to the Houthis' potential shutdown of the Red Sea. He also threatened to strike Iran's nuclear facility soon. Our Kim Jun-ho reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that the United States would respond if Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis move to blockade commercial shipping in the Red Sea.
So far, it hasn't happened, might happen, but we take care of things. If something like that happens, we take care of it, you know.
The Houthis declared a naval blockade of Saudi Arabia on Monday, threatening to attack any vessel loading or unloading Saudi oil. That's already disrupting traffic, with 2 tankers carrying Saudi crude to Asia reversing course in the Red Sea on Tuesday. Since the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea has served as the main alternative route for crude exports. But the latest disruption is raising fresh supply concerns. Global oil prices gained more than 2% on Tuesday, pushing Brent crude above $91 a barrel. Trump later said the U.S. will be hitting Iran's Pickaxe Mountain area pretty soon. The fortified Iranian nuclear site is under construction and buried deep underground.
And Honestly, they haven't seen anything yet. We've been nice. We've been nice. We'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon, and there's not a thing they can do about it.
The war is taking a growing financial toll on Washington. While defending the White House's supplemental funding request before a Senate committee on Tuesday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth revealed that the U.S. campaign against Iran has already cost $37.5 billion. The figure includes projected costs through September. He said $67 billion of the White House's $87.6 billion supplemental funding request was needed to help cover the costs of the war. Meanwhile, Iran continues its retaliatory strikes on U.S. military facilities across the region. The Revolutionary Guard said on Tuesday they had hit a tactical radar array and other systems in Kuwait, claiming the targets had been successfully neutralized. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
Seoul's Foreign Minister Cho Hyun will attend ASEAN-related meetings in Manila from Wednesday. He will meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi, with North Korea regional development and economic security expected to top the agenda. The meeting comes roughly 2 weeks after their previous talks at the NATO summit in Ankara. Cho will begin Wednesday's schedule with bilateral talks with Australia and Thailand, before attending the South Korea ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. He will meet his counterparts from New Zealand, Brunei, and the Philippines later in the day. On Thursday, Cho will attend the ASEAN +3 Foreign Ministers meeting, followed by the ASEAN Regional Forum and the East Asia Summit Foreign Ministers meeting. He will conclude his schedule by meeting his counterparts from the Mekong countries. So foreign ministers from the 11-member ASEAN member states and major partners have gathered in Manila. This diplomatic gathering in Southeast Asia this week takes place against a backdrop of instability beyond the region, since the United States and Iran resumed open conflict, raising energy security concerns as well as inflation and global growth. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Cho Won-duk, Assistant Professor at the Department of Indo-Pacific Studies at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Cho, thanks for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you.
So what do you think will be the main focus of this year's ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, and what should we be watching for?
This year's meeting comes at a very tense moment. So the major theme is really ASEAN unity under pressure and instabilities. The Philippines, as this year's chair, opened by saying that in a world full of uncertainty, no single country can face this uncertainty and unpredictability alone. So I'd point to three things to watch these meetings. First, it is the Middle East. The resumed conflict between the United States and Iran has raised fears about shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, and Southeast Asia depends heavily on that route for its oil. So expect the ministers to push hard on energy security, including a regional fuel sharing plan and a new ASEAN power grid. Second, I think it's Myanmar. This is where the ASEAN bloc is most divided. For example, Thailand wants to bring Myanmar back into the ASEAN, but others say not while the repression continues in Myanmar. So watch closely whether they can agree on anything beyond the same old statements. And lastly, the South China Sea. As you know, just 2 days ago, Chinese and Philippines forces clashed again near the second topmost shore in the South China Sea. And with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Foreign Ministers Wang Yi and Sergei Lavrov all coming to Manila this week, I think that some discussions about that may happen in the sideline meetings. And so, therefore, in short, watch how ASEAN handles this outside pressure while trying to hold itself together this week.
Right, and South Korea's foreign minister will also be there at the meetings in Manila, speaking with ASEAN leaders. So why do ASEAN countries matter so much to South Korea, both strategically and economically?
I think that's very important question because for Korea, ASEAN isn't just one more region in the world. It's becoming a central pillar of our foreign policy and economic security. Let me start with the economic side. ASEAN is already one of Korea's biggest trading partners and investment destinations. And the two sides are now aiming even higher. Under the new Korea-ASEAN Comprehensive Strategic Partnership vision, they want yearly trade to reach $300 billion and the 15 million people traveling back and forth each year. Korea is also sharing what it does best. For example, AI, culture and content, power grid and capacity building, and so on, to build full future growth together. So this isn't just about the selling products. It's about the building long-term partnerships. Now the strategic side. Just to look at where ASEAN sits on the map. It sits on top of some of the world's most important sea routes, including the Strait of Malacca, where most of Korea's energy coming through. So when we see tensions in the South China Sea, I think that Korea feels it right away because we depend on those routes to keep our economy running. So ASEAN matters to Korea on two levels at once. Economically, it's a market and also a growth partner. Strategically, it's the sea lifeline that keeps our energy and trade flows. That's why Korea is investing so much in this relationship right now.
I see. And foreign ministers of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan are set to hold a trilateral meeting on the sidelines there. What issues do you think are likely to be discussed there?
Yes, this trilateral meeting is one of the most closely watched moments of the week. As I mentioned before, on the 22nd today in Manila, Foreign Minister Jo Yeon will meet with Secretary Rubio and Japan's Foreign Minister Motegi. And here is the context. This comes just 2 weeks after they last met on the sideline of the NATO summit. So the three countries are keeping up a very steady pace of talks. I'd expect three main themes. First, I think this is a standout item this time, nuclear energies. At the NATO meeting, the three countries signed an agreement to work together on small modular reactors, or SMRs. They are a newer, smaller type of nuclear plant. So in Manila, they are expected to focus on following through on that deal. Second, and the most important, is North Korea. And this year, there is a new angles. North Korea is moving much closer to both China and Russia. Just recently, its foreign minister, Chey traveled to Moscow and met President Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov. And the North Korea and China are marking 65 years of their friendship treaty with high-level visits. So the three ministers are expected to share their assessment of this Pyongyang, Beijing, Moscow alignment and partnerships. And lastly, the wider world, especially Middle East. The tensions there are heating up again. So that's expected to land on the table too among three ministers.
Right, we'll have to see how the meeting plays out. All right, Professor Cho, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Following the overnight rally in tech stocks on Wall Street, Korean stocks posted strong gains this morning, extending the upward momentum from the previous day. The benchmark KOSPI even triggered a buy-side sidecar, soaring over 5% shortly after opening. As of 9:20 a.m., the KOSPI was trading at 7,145, up nearly 6% from the previous session. The rally is largely being led by market heavyweights, with Samsung Electronics jumping over 5% and SK Hynix rising over 8%. Silicon Valley could host an unprecedented gathering of the world's biggest AI leaders this week, with the heads of Samsung, SK Group, Naver, and Nvidia expected to meet. The talks are expected to focus on strengthening AI infrastructure cooperation as Nvidia rolls out its next-generation AI computing platform. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong, SK Group Chairman Chey Tae-won, and Naver founder Lee Hae-jin are expected to meet Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang in Silicon Valley later this week in what could become one of the most significant gatherings of leaders in the global AI industry. According to business sources on Wednesday, a roundtable is being arranged for as early as July 24th, with discussions expected to focus on expanding cooperation in AI infrastructure. The meeting could also include OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, bringing together executives from companies that lead key segments of artificial intelligence, from advanced memory chips and graphics processors to generative AI services. If held, it would mark the first time leaders from the world's top AI hardware and software companies have gathered in one place to discuss collaboration across the industry's supply chain. The planned talks would also highlight Nvidia's growing partnership with South Korean companies. Jensen Huang visited Seoul in early June, meeting executives from Samsung, SK, Hyundai Motor, LG, and Naver. Another high-level meeting just over a month later would underscore Korea's increasingly important role in the global AI ecosystem. The gathering comes as Nvidia accelerates deployment of its next-generation AI computing platform. The company says systems powered by its new Vera Rubin architecture have entered full-scale production and are already being installed by major customers. Nvidia says OpenAI plans to deploy the platform at scale by the third quarter, while Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Meta, Dell Technologies, and CoreWeave are also integrating the new systems into their AI data centers. Named after pioneering American astronomer Vera Rubin, the new chip architecture marks Nvidia's next major leap in AI computing and is designed to handle the rapidly growing data demands of advanced AI training and inference. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Korea's producer price index, a key gauge of future consumer inflation, remained flat in June from the previous month to end a 9-month streak of gains, though it rose 8.6% year-on-year. According to preliminary data from the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, coal and petroleum products dropped around 5% last month due to lower oil prices, while computer, electronic, and optical devices rose about 2%, driven by steady demand. However, the Bank of Korea notes that producer prices are still showing a high growth rate year-on-year, and secondary effects from oil price hikes are expected to persist. BTS global hit Dynamite is enjoying a renewed surge in the United States following the 2026 FIFA World Cup final, as the group took to the stage for the halftime show on Sunday, performing the song before a worldwide audience. According to Billboard on Tuesday, citing Luminate data, U.S. streams of Dynamite jumped 13% in a single day to 160,000. Other songs featured during the show also saw gains. The official World Cup song by Shakira and Burna Boy rose 25% to 979,000 streams, while Justin Bieber's Everything Hallelujah posted the biggest increase, climbing 34% to 130,000. Madonna's Music also gained 6%. South Korea's Daejeon City has been selected to host the 2029 Invictus Games, an international sporting event for injured military veterans. This will mark the first time the Games are hosted in Asia, raising expectations for Korea to expand the event's presence across the continent. Our Park Gun-woo reports.
For the first time, the Invictus Games are coming to Asia. The Korean central city of Daejeon secured the right to host the 2029 Games after winning a unanimous vote over San Diego in the US and Aalborg, Denmark. Evaluators credited Korea's closely coordinated effort between the central government, local authorities, and the veteran community, united behind one mission: helping wounded service members recover and rebuild their lives.
When I competed, I had to go all the way to Germany, so it's meaningful that Korea will now be able to welcome athletes. I hope it helps more people recognize how veterans are honored here. After being injured, many service members feel like their lives are over, but I eventually realized it wasn't the end, but the beginning.
Founded by the UK's Prince Harry in 2014, The Invictus Games use sport to support the physical, psychological, and social recovery of wounded service members. And the Daejeon Games will mark its 9th edition. But despite its growing global reach, South Korea remains the only Asian country participating so far. The foundation believes hosting the Games in Korea could encourage more Asian nations to join.
Within the Asian context, it's the fact that there is a lot of conflict going on and a lot of veterans around that aren't necessarily getting the respect and treatment. The great determination would be that we help change attitudes across Asia as well. I know there will be millions of people in Asia be watching the Games in Daejeon.
The 2029 Games are expected to draw thousands of athletes, families, and supporters from 26 countries. Among the participating nations are 12 countries that fought alongside South Korea or provided medical support during the Korean War, including the US, Australia, and Colombia. Daejeon is also stepping up preparations to ensure the Games are a success.
We're expecting around 3,000 athletes and family members. We'll carefully prepare every aspect from sports venues to accommodation to ensure the Games are a success. With our experience hosting a major international event recently, we're confident.
The countdown has already begun, and in 2029, Daejeon will become the first Asian city to host the Invictus Games, showing how sport can help wounded service members recover and rebuild their lives. 박건우, Arirang News, Daejeon.
Good morning, I'm Choo Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In Ukraine, President Vladimir Zelenskyy has fired General Alexander Syrskyi as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and named Mihailo Drapati as his replacement, following days of mass protests in Kyiv and other cities demanding Syrskyi's removal. It's the second time in the past year Zelenskyy has reversed course under pressure from protests after rallies last summer forced him to undo a law weakening Ukraine's anti-corruption watchdogs. The crisis began last week when Zelenskyy fired his defense minister Mikhailo Fedorov. Fedorov then publicly accused Syrskyi of blocking military reforms and fostering a Soviet-style command culture. Protesters framed Fedorov's removal as Zelenskyy siding with the military's old guard. Zelenskyy said he made the decision after a series of meetings with military commanders. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney warned that he would consider all options if the new tariffs that Trump threatened go ahead. Carney's comments come after he and Trump agreed on Tuesday to intensify trade negotiations. President Trump on Monday unveiled 50% tariffs on a wide range of Canadian goods, citing what he called discriminatory treatment of American cars, alcohol, and dairy. Asked whether the tariffs were linked to his earlier comments blaming Canada for wildfire smoke, Trump said, quote, "No, that's separate." The U.S. Trade Representative's office says the tariffs would apply to nearly $20 billion of Canadian imports, which is about 5% of what the U.S. imported from Canada last year. Carney said Canadian provinces should only lift their bans on U.S. alcohol as part of a broader trade deal. In Chile, week-long rainstorms have killed at least 10 people and triggered flash floods that have cut off more than 100,000 others as authorities race to reach those stranded. Chile's president declared a state of emergency on Monday in the Atacama and Coquimbo regions in the country's usually arid north. The storms there have destroyed dozens of homes and displaced thousands of people. Officials warn that swollen rivers will remain a threat even after the rain eases. Meteorologists attribute the rain to the return of El Niño, a naturally occurring Pacific Ocean phenomenon that brings extreme weather to the region. In France, lawmakers have approved a ban on social media access for children under 15 as concerns grow worldwide over social media's impact on kids' health and safety. France becomes the first country in Europe to adopt such a ban following Australia, where a ban for under 16s on platforms including Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube took effect in December. Under the new law, children under under younger 15 won't be able to open a social media account starting September 1st, and platforms will have 4 months to close existing accounts. Platforms will also be required to use age verification approved by France's privacy regulator.
Hot and humid conditions will continue across the country today. Afternoon highs have been hovering below 30 degrees Celsius in the capital area for nearly a week due to the rain and cloudy skies, but that high humidity is making everyone feeling sluggish. Meanwhile, heat wave alerts remain in place for most of the southern provinces with an expected high of 37 degrees Celsius in Pohang in Gyeongsang-Pukto province. The heaviest rain bands have moved away, but Central Korea can still expect to see 5 to 60 millimeters throughout the day. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 30 degrees, Daegu and Gyeongju at 35 degrees, Jeju topping out at 34 degrees, with most of the island experiencing more than 2 weeks of tropical nights. More monsoon showers are expected nationwide tomorrow, and the combination of hot and humid days and warm nights will continue for most regions.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.